The information provided in this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute professional automotive, legal, or financial advice. Automotive repairs involve complex mechanical and electrical systems that can be dangerous if mishandled. Every vehicle and every repair situation is unique, and potential outcomes may vary based on your specific make, model, and local regulations. Viewers are strongly encouraged to conduct their own due diligence, consult with certified master technicians, and review their vehicle's owner manual and warranty terms before authorizing any work. We are not responsible for any actions taken based on the content of this video, or for any historical trends discussed that may not apply to your current situation. The moment you hand over your keys to an auto repair shop, you are essentially entering into a high-stakes financial negotiation where one party holds all the information and the other party is literally walking home. For the average American driver, the car is the second most expensive asset they own, yet it is the one they understand the least. Right now, there is a silent crisis happening in service bays across the United States. Historical trends indicate that the average cost of a common vehicle repair has surged by over 30% in the last few years alone, driven by a combination of complex computer systems, parts shortages, and a widening gap in consumer knowledge. Imagine walking into a shop because your check engine light is blinking. You are told it could be a simple sensor or a total engine failure. In that moment of vulnerability, you are not just a customer. You are a target for what industry insiders call the ticket patter. This video is a deep dive masterclass into the mechanics of the automotive service industry, designed to pull back the curtain on how a $50 part turns into a $2,500 invoice. If you have ever felt that sinking feeling in your stomach when a service advisor walks toward you with a clipboard and a solemn expression, you are not alone. We are going to examine the specific psychological triggers and systemic loopholes used to extract more money from your wallet than is legally or mechanically necessary. This is not just about saving a few dollars on an oil change. This is about protecting yourself from the predatory practices that have become systemic in an era where cars are essentially mobile supercomputers. To understand why you are at risk today, we must first look at the state of the American automotive landscape in 2026. The average age of a vehicle on U.S. roads has reached an all-time high, often exceeding 12 years. While this speaks to the durability of modern engineering, it also means that more drivers are operating vehicles that are out of warranty and entering the high-maintenance phase of their life cycle. At the same time, the rise of the specialized technician has replaced the general grease monkey. When a modern vehicle malfunctions, it is rarely a simple mechanical fix. It is usually a failure of an electronic control module or a proprietary sensor that requires thousands of dollars in diagnostic equipment to even identify. This complexity creates a perfect environment for information asymmetry. Case studies from consumer advocacy groups have shown that when a customer lacks a fundamental understanding of their vehicle systems, repair shops are significantly more likely to recommend unnecessary preventative maintenance or utilize what is known as the shotgun approach to repairs, where they replace multiple parts in the hope that one of them fixes the problem, all on your dime. The problem we are solving today is the lack of a defensive framework for the consumer. Most people go into a repair shop with hope as their only strategy. They hope the mechanic is honest, they hope the part is in stock, and they hope they can afford the final bill. Hope, however, is not a financial plan. Today, we are going to equip you with the specific observational tools and technical vocabulary needed to identify the warning signs of an unfair bill before you ever sign the authorization form. We will explore the historical trends of labor rate inflation, which in major metropolitan areas like New York City, Los Angeles, and Chicago has seen shop rates climb to nearly $200 per hour. We will break down the hidden math of the flat rate manual, a system used by almost every major dealership and independent shop in the country, which allows them to bill you for 4 hours of work, even if the technician finished the job in 45 minutes. By understanding these systemic structures, you can move from a position of vulnerability to a position of informed authority. Think about the last time you were told your vehicle needed a fuel induction service or a power steering flush. Did the technician show you the fluid? Did they explain why the manufacturer's maintenance schedule, which you have in your glove box, says that fluid should last for 100,000 miles while the shop is telling you it is urgent at 30,000? This discrepancy is where millions of dollars are transferred from American households to repair shop bottom lines every single year. We are going to look at case studies involving major national chains where service advisors were found to be on commission-based structures, incentivizing them to upsell services that have zero impact on the safety or longevity of your vehicle. This masterclass is designed to give you the upper hand by teaching you how to spot these incentives in real time. Furthermore, we will address the shifting landscape of parts procurement. In the past, you had the choice between original equipment manufacturer parts and affordable aftermarket alternatives. Today, many manufacturers are using proprietary software locks that prevent third-party parts from communicating with the car's central computer. This has created a monopoly on repairs that is currently being fought in the courts under the right to repair movement. We will discuss how these potential outcomes of legal battles may affect your future repair costs, and what you can do right now to bypass these artificial price hikes. The goal of this part of the script is to set the stage for a total shift in how you view the service department. It is no longer enough to just be a driver. You must be an advocate for your own property. We are going to dive into the 5 specific signs that indicate you are being set up for an unfair bill. These signs range from the subtle language used by the service advisor to the physical layout of the shop itself. We will examine how high-pressure sales tactics, like the use of the word safety to justify non-essential cosmetic repairs, are used to bypass your logical defenses. By the time we finish this deep dive, you will have a comprehensive understanding of the red flags that suggest a shop is prioritizing its monthly quota over your vehicle's health. You need to watch this entire series because the 5th sign we will discuss is something 99% of drivers miss, and it is the single most common way that honest people end up paying a $1,000 premium on every major service visit. We are moving beyond the basic advice of getting a second opinion and moving into the technical and psychological nuances of the automotive industry. Whether you are driving a 20-year-old pickup truck or a brand new electric vehicle, the principles of avoiding an unfair repair bill remain the same. The complexity of the machine has changed, but the human element of the transaction has not. We are here to ensure that when you walk back into that service lobby to pick up your keys, you are doing so with the confidence that every cent on that invoice was earned, necessary, and fair. Let's begin the deep dive into the first sign that your wallet is in the crosshairs. Would you like me to write part 2 of the script? Marcus pulls his 2019 SUV into a bright, clean service bay in a suburb of Atlanta. It is a humid Tuesday morning in April 2026. He has noticed a slight vibration in the steering wheel when braking. The service advisor, a man named Dave wearing a crisp branded polo, listens intently. Dave does not look at the car. He looks at Marcus. This is the first subtle cue of an industry that has mastered the art of consumer profiling. Dave tells Marcus that they need to perform a comprehensive vehicle health check and a specialized vibration analysis, which will cost $220. However, Dave adds a crucial caveat. If the technician finds that the issue is deep within the steering rack or the electronic power steering module, they will need an additional 3 hours of diagnostic labor at $190 per hour just to identify the exact failing component. This is where the first sign of an unfair bill manifests: the open-ended diagnostic fee and the tear-down trap. In historical trends observed across the United States automotive sector in 2026, shops have moved away from simple flat-fee diagnostics toward tiered labor structures that function like a financial black hole. Imagine if you went to a doctor for a headache and they told you it would cost $500 just to walk in the door, but if they had to think about your headache for more than 10 minutes, the price would double every hour. You would likely walk out. Yet, in the automotive world, consumers frequently agree to these terms because they feel trapped by the increasing complexity of modern machinery. A fair shop will provide a hard cap on diagnostic time. They will tell you that the initial fee covers 1 hour of testing, and if they cannot find the problem, they will call you with a specific plan for what they intend to test next and why it requires more time. An unfair bill starts with a verbal or written agreement that grants the shop a blank check to keep charging you for searching. Case studies involving consumer protection bureaus have shown that unscrupulous shops will often spend that billed diagnostic time doing nothing at all, only to tell the customer that they finally found the issue after 4 hours of labor. In reality, a certified technician often knows the likely cause within 15 minutes, but the shop needs to hit a labor target for the morning. Imagine if Marcus is convinced to let the shop take apart the front end of his truck. The advisor says they need to pull the steering rack to see if the internal seals are leaking, claiming it will be $600 in labor just to look. Marcus agrees. 3 hours later, he gets a call. The rack is fine, but they found a small leak in the water pump while they were there. However, since the steering rack is already out, they claim they cannot put it back together without replacing the mounting bolts, which are one-time use items currently on backorder for 3 days. Now Marcus is stuck. He has no car, a $600 bill for an inspection that found nothing wrong with the original complaint, and a new suggested repair for a water pump that he cannot verify. This is the hostage scenario. Historical trends show that once a vehicle is disassembled, the consumer's bargaining power drops to zero. A professional shop would never suggest a teardown for a vibration issue before exhausting all external diagnostic possibilities, such as wheel balancing or rotor runout tests. If a shop jumped straight to disassembly, it is a sign they are looking for a way to lock you into a high-cost repair. Now, consider the second sign, which often follows the diagnostic phase: the high-pressure safety pivot. Imagine a driver named Sarah who lives in a high-traffic area like Northern Virginia. She takes her 2021 sedan in for a routine oil change and tire rotation. While she is sitting in the waiting room, scrolling through her phone, the advisor approaches her with a digital tablet. He shows her a series of photos of her car's underside. He points to a small amount of residue on a shock absorber and a slightly discolored brake fluid reservoir. He uses words like compromised, critical, and liability. He tells her that while she came in for a $60 oil change, her car is currently unsafe to drive on the highway, and the total for the necessary repairs is $1,800. This is the classic incentivized upsell. In 2026, the retail side of the automotive industry has become incredibly sophisticated in its use of psychological triggers. Historical trends show that service advisors are often trained more in sales than in mechanical engineering. They are frequently paid on a sliding scale commission. If they sell more than $10,000 of labor in a week, their commission percentage might jump from 5% to 8%. This creates a direct conflict of interest between the advisor and the customer. Sarah is being told her car is a safety hazard not necessarily because it is, but because the advisor needs to hit a specific revenue target by the end of the shift. To identify if you are being hit with an unfair bill during this phase, look at the inspection report. Is it color-coded? Shops in 2026 almost universally use software that generates green, yellow, and red reports. This is designed to mimic a traffic light, triggering a primal response in the human brain. Red means stop, danger, and immediate action. However, many items listed as red in these reports are actually yellow or even green according to the manufacturer's official service manual. For example, a shop might list a battery as red because it tested at 80% of its original cranking amps. In reality, that battery might have another 2 years of life in it. The shop is counting on your fear of being stranded to force a $250 sale. Case studies have revealed that Sarah could have verified the necessity of these repairs by asking for the specific measurements. If an advisor says your brakes are dangerous, ask for the remaining thickness in millimeters. If they say the fluid is dirty, ask for a copper strip test or a moisture content percentage. If they cannot provide these objective data points, they are selling you a narrative, not a repair. Unfair bills thrive in the gray area of subjective opinion. By demanding objective data, you force the shop to justify the invoice with facts rather than fear. Another layer to this sign is the bundling of services. Imagine if Sarah was told that since they are already working on the brakes, it makes sense to also replace the rotors, the calipers, and the brake lines. This is known as the while we are in there technique. While it can sometimes save on labor, it is also a primary way that invoices are inflated. The shop will bill you the full flat rate labor for every single part, even though they only had to take the wheel off once. In a fair billing scenario, the labor for overlapping jobs should be discounted. If the shop is charging you 3 separate labor charges for parts that sit right next to each other, you are looking at an unfair bill in the making. Finally, look closely at the bottom of the estimate for what are often called shop supplies or environmental fees. These are frequently calculated as a percentage of the labor, usually 5 to 10%. In a $2,000 repair, this could be an extra $200. What are you actually paying for? Historically, these fees were meant to cover small items like brake cleaner, rags, and the disposal of old oil. However, in 2026, many shops use this as a pure profit center. Imagine if you went to a restaurant and they charged you a $15 silver cleaning fee on top of your meal. You would be outraged. In the auto industry, this is often an unfair, hidden tax. If your repair only involved replacing an electronic sensor, no hazardous waste was generated and no rags were used. Why are you being charged a $75 environmental fee? A transparent shop will cap these fees at a reasonable flat rate, such as $25. If you see a percentage-based fee with no ceiling, you are being overcharged for the air the technician breathes. The complexity of modern cars in 2026 also allows for a new type of billing inflation: the software update fee. As cars become more reliant on firmware, Shops have started charging $100 to $200 just to plug in a module and click update. While there is a cost for the subscription to the manufacturer's software, the actual labor involved is minimal. Historical trends suggest that many of these updates should actually be covered under technical service bulletins or even manufacturer programs that the shop could claim for you, yet they choose to bill the customer instead. But what happens when the shop tells you that the part they need is only available through the manufacturer, and it will cost triple what you expected? This leads into our next major sign, involving the mystery of parts markups and the hidden language of the estimate. We have only scratched the surface of how the service bay operates. In the next part, we will look at the specific line items on an invoice that serve as smoking guns for overcharging, and how a simple request for your old parts can change the entire tone of the conversation. If you think the diagnostic fee was a trap, wait until you see how they hide profit in the parts matrix. The parts matrix is the industry's best kept secret, and the primary reason your final invoice often feels like a punch to the gut. To understand this, we need to look at David, a commuter in Phoenix, Arizona, in the summer of 2026. David drives a 2022 hybrid sedan that recently developed a cooling system leak. When he takes it to a high-end independent shop, the service advisor presents an estimate that includes a specific coolant control valve priced at $485. David, being tech-savvy, does a quick search on his phone and finds the exact same manufacturer stamp part available at a local dealership for $290 and an aftermarket equivalent for $140. When David asks why the shop's price is nearly double the retail price, the advisor gives a vague answer about quality control and warranty backing. This is the third sign you are about to receive an unfair bill: the non-negotiable hyperinflated parts markup. In 2026, most American auto repair shops utilize specialized management software that includes a feature known as the parts matrix. This is a logarithmic formula that automatically scales the price of a part based on what the shop paid for it. Historical trends show that for inexpensive items like nuts, bolts, or small sensors that cost the shop $5, the matrix might apply a 400% markup, bringing your cost to $25. For a part that costs the shop $500, the markup might drop to 50%. While every business needs a profit margin to keep the lights on and pay their technicians a living wage, an unfair bill pushes these markups beyond the industry standard of 25 to 50%. If you see a part on your estimate that is priced significantly higher than the manufacturer's suggested retail price, or MSRP, you are likely looking at a shop that is using parts profit to subsidize their overhead or inefficiency. In 2026, many shops have faced rising commercial rents and utility costs, and instead of raising their visible labor rate, which customers compare easily, they hide the increase in the parts matrix. To verify this, you should always ask for the part number. If a shop refuses to provide a specific part number before you authorize the repair, it is a massive red flag. They are preventing you from doing your due diligence. A fair shop will be transparent about the part they are using and why they are charging a premium, often citing the cost of immediate delivery or the technician's time spent verifying the part's fitment. Imagine if David had simply agreed to the $485 valve. He would have also been charged a core charge that the shop likely wouldn't have mentioned. For many automotive components like alternators, starters, and batteries, the manufacturer places a bounty on the old part to ensure it is returned for recycling or rebuilding. This is called a core charge. In an unfair billing scenario, a shop might charge you the full price of the new part plus the core charge, but then they keep your old part and collect the core refund for themselves. This is essentially double dipping on your invoice. Case studies in 2026 have highlighted that this practice alone adds an average of $50 to $150 to unsuspecting customers' bills every time a major electrical or mechanical component is replaced. To combat this, you must use the box in the trunk rule. Before you sign any work order, you should state clearly that you want all replaced parts returned to you in the boxes that the new parts came in. In the United States, many state laws actually require a shop to return your old parts if you request them at the time the work is authorized. By making this request, you do two things. First, you ensure that the shop actually replaced the part they claimed was broken. Second, you see the packaging of the new part. If the shop charged you for a premium OEM part, but the box in your trunk is from a budget-tier aftermarket brand, you have physical evidence of an unfair and potentially fraudulent billing practice. Let's look at the data regarding aftermarket versus OEM parts in 2026. As vehicles become more complex, the gap between a cheap part and a high-quality part has widened. However, the price gap has widened even further. Some shops will buy a white label part from a global distributor for $40 and bill you $300, claiming it is OEM equivalent. Historical trends indicate that while some aftermarket parts are indeed superior to the originals, many are substandard components that will fail within a year. An unfair bill doesn't just overcharge you today. It sets you up for another repair tomorrow. If the shop is unwilling to discuss the brand of the parts they are installing, they are likely prioritizing their profit margin over your vehicle's reliability. Another layer of the parts trap is the shipping and handling fee. In 2026, with the integration of real-time logistics, most shops receive parts deliveries multiple times a day from local warehouses. Some shops have started adding a $30 or $40 hotshot delivery fee to every invoice, even if the part was already sitting on their shelf. This is a hidden profit center. Imagine if you bought a shirt at a department store, and they charged you a delivery fee for the truck that brought the shirt to the store 3 days ago. You wouldn't accept it. You should not accept it at an auto shop either. Step by step, here is how you should handle the parts phase of an estimate. First, demand an itemized list that separates parts from labor. If the shop provides a single total for a job, such as $700 for a brake job, they are hiding the markup. Second, take 5 minutes to search for the major components on your phone. Look for the MSRP. If the shop's price is more than 30% above MSRP, ask them to justify the variance. Third, confirm the warranty. A fair shop will offer a warranty on both the part and the labor, usually for 12 months or 12,000 miles. If they are charging you a premium price but offering no warranty or a very limited one, you are paying for protection you are not receiving. Think about Sarah from our previous example. If she is told she needs a new electronic power steering rack, she is looking at a $3,000 part. If the shop applies a standard matrix markup of 50%, that is $1,500 in profit on the part alone, before a single hour of labor is billed. In 2026, some consumers are finding that they can purchase the part themselves and bring it to the shop. However, be warned. Most reputable shops will not install customer-supplied parts because they cannot warranty the labor if the part fails. This is a legitimate concern. The sign of an unfair bill is not that the shop won't use your part, but that they won't meet you in the middle on the price of their part when presented with evidence of a massive markup. The strategy of the unfair bill relies on the customer's desire for convenience and their fear of conflict. The service advisor is trained to make you feel like questioning the price is a slight against the technician's expertise. It is not. It is a business transaction involving your hard-earned money. By focusing on the parts matrix, the core charges, and the old parts return, you signal to the shop that you are an informed consumer who cannot be easily exploited. But the parts are only half of the equation. Even if you negotiate a fair price on the components, there is a much more elusive way that shops inflate your bill, and it's hidden in the way they measure time. We are talking about the flat rate manual and the phenomenon of ghost labor. In the next part, we will dive into how a technician can bill 60 hours of work in a 40-hour week and why you are the one paying for that impossible efficiency. We will show you how to read the labor lines on your invoice to spot the overlapping jobs that are costing you hundreds of dollars in unnecessary fees. If you think the parts markup was a deep dive, the world of flat rate labor is a total rabbit hole that most drivers never see coming. To understand the fourth sign of an unfair auto repair bill, you must first understand the invisible currency of the service bay, the flat rate hour. This is not a measure of actual time on a clock, but a standardized unit of value derived from a labor guide. Imagine Chloe, a graphic designer living in Chicago in 2026. She drives a 2020 compact crossover that has recently hit the 90,000-mile mark. She takes her vehicle to a local shop for a timing belt replacement and a water pump service, as these are often recommended together. The service advisor, looking at a computer screen that utilizes industry-standard software like Mitchell 1 or ALLDATA, informs Chloe that the timing belt job is rated at 5 hours of labor and the water pump is rated at 3 hours. At the current 2026 Chicago labor rate of $210 per hour, Chloe is presented with an estimate for 8 hours of labor, totaling $1,680 before parts. This is where the fourth sign, the overlap extraction, begins to drain your bank account. In a professional, fair environment, a shop understands that to replace a timing belt, a technician must already disassemble the front of the engine and remove the very components that house the water pump. Historically, these two jobs are considered overlapping labor. If the timing belt is already off, the water pump might only take an additional 20 minutes to replace, not an additional 3 hours. An unfair bill occurs when a shop charges you for the standalone labor time of every single part, ignoring the fact that the technician only had to perform the teardown once. In Chloe's case, a fair bill would reflect the 5 hours for the timing belt, plus an additional half hour of labor for the water pump. That is a difference of $525 in labor alone. When you are looking at your estimate, you are looking for the word bundled or the lack thereof. If you see 3 or 4 separate repairs listed and each one has a large labor charge, you must ask the service advisor for the labor guide breakdown. Case studies in 2026 show that this is the most common way service centers inflate their bottom line without technically lying about the parts being installed. They are simply billing you for ghost hours, time that was never actually spent because the technician was already working in that specific area of the vehicle. Imagine if you hired a painter to paint your front door and your door frame. The painter tells you it takes 2 hours to prep the door and 2 hours to prep the frame. If he preps them both at the same time but charges you for 4 hours of prep, he is utilizing ghost labor. In the automotive world, this is systemic. To protect yourself, you need to understand the concept of flag hours versus clock hours. In most U.S. shops in 2026, technicians are paid by the flag hour. If a technician is highly skilled and completes a 5-hour timing belt job in 3 actual clock hours, they still get paid for 5 hours of work. This system is designed to reward efficiency and experience. However, an unfair shop uses this system to exploit the consumer. They might assign a junior technician who takes 6 hours to do the job, but bill you for 8 because they added overlapping labor charges. Historical trends in the industry suggest that as vehicles become more cramped and complex, the opportunity for overlapping labor inflation increases. Let's look at another scenario featuring Liam in Austin, Texas. In the summer of 2026, Liam's 2021 pickup truck needs front-end suspension work. The shop tells him he needs new upper and lower control arms, as well as new struts. The labor guide says the struts take 3 hours, the upper control arms take 2 hours, and the lower control arms take 3 hours. The shop hands Liam an estimate for 8 hours of labor. What they aren't telling Liam is that the struts and the control arms are all connected to the same steering knuckle. To get to one, you almost always have to move or remove the others. In this situation, the true additional labor to swap the control arms while the struts are already being replaced is minimal. If Liam doesn't know to ask about labor overlap, he could easily pay an extra $600 to $800 for labor that was never performed. A major red flag during the estimate phase is the refusal to show the labor guide data. If a service advisor tells you they don't use a guide and they just know how long it takes, you are in a danger zone. In 2026, every reputable shop uses a digital labor guide to ensure consistency. If they are making up numbers on the fly, those numbers will almost always favor the shop's daily revenue goals rather than your financial well-being. Furthermore, look out for the diagnostic roll-in. In the previous part, we discussed the diagnostic fee. If you paid $200 for a diagnostic to find a leak, and the subsequent repair requires the technician to take off the exact same parts they removed to find the leak, that diagnostic fee should often be credited toward the labor of the repair. An unfair bill will charge you the diagnostic fee and the full repair labor, effectively charging you twice for the same disassembly. Case studies have shown that consumers who ask for the labor hours per line item are treated differently by service advisors. The moment you ask how many hours does the guide specify for the water pump as an add-on to the timing belt, you signal that you understand the mechanics of the billing system. This often leads to a sudden recalculation where the advisor discovers a discount or a bundling option they previously overlooked. It is not about being confrontational. It is about demanding the same transparency you would expect from any other professional service. Potential outcomes of failing to scrutinize labor hours are significant. Over the lifetime of a vehicle, a driver who consistently pays for overlapping labor may spend upwards of $5,000 in ghost labor fees. In 2026, as the cost of living continues to pressure American households, these unnecessary expenses can be the difference between maintaining a vehicle safely and being forced to sell it. Another trend we are seeing is the flat rate menu price. Some shops are moving away from itemizing labor and parts altogether, offering a single price for a brake job or a suspension overhaul. While this may seem simpler, it is almost always used to mask the labor overlap. If you cannot see how much you are being charged for the parts versus the time, you cannot audit the fairness of the transaction. Step by step, you should verify labor by doing the following. First, get the itemized estimate. Second, identify which parts are in the same general area of the car. For example, the brakes and the wheel bearings, or the spark plugs and the valve cover gaskets. Third, specifically ask if the labor for the secondary jobs has been adjusted for overlap. Fourth, if you are unsure, you can use online labor estimators that are available to the public in 2026. While these may not be 100% accurate to your specific shop software, they will give you a ballpark figure. If your shop is quoting double the hours of an online estimator, you have a solid foundation to ask why. The fourth sign of an unfair bill is rooted in the complexity of the machine and the obscurity of the labor guide. It is a sign that thrives on the customer's lack of technical knowledge. By understanding that time in a repair shop is a standardized product and not a reflection of the clock, you can begin to see through the inflated estimates. But even if you manage to negotiate a fair labor rate and catch the overlapping hours, there is one final sign that usually occurs at the very end of the process. It is the most high-pressure moment of the entire experience, the post-repair discovery and the urgency of the final handover. In the next part, we will explore the fifth and final sign, which involves the mysterious parts that were supposedly found broken during the repair, and why the shop is suddenly in a rush to get you out the door. We will also dive into the critical steps you must take before you swipe your card and drive away, including the visual inspection that most people are too intimidated to perform. If you want to make sure the work you paid for was actually done to standard, the next section is the most important part of this entire masterclass. Imagine if Elena is sitting at her desk in a high-rise office in Seattle. It is a rainy Thursday in November 2026, and she is waiting for a status update on her 2022 electric hybrid crossover. She brought it in for what she thought was a routine inspection of the regenerative braking system. At 2 in the afternoon, her phone buzzes with a text message from the service center. It contains a link to a digital inspection report. This is where the fifth and perhaps most psychologically taxing sign of an unfair bill emerges: the mid-repair discovery and the accompanying sense of manufactured urgency. In the 2026 automotive service landscape, the digital inspection report has become the industry standard. Historical trends show that shops using these reports see a 40% increase in average repair order value. Why? Because it uses the power of visual evidence to bypass a customer's skepticism. Elena clicks the link and sees a blurry photo of a rubber boot on her front axle that looks slightly wet. The caption reads, "Critical failure imminent. CV-båttorn. Grease leaking. Potential outcomes include total axle seizure and loss of steering control while driving." The estimate for this additional work is $980. The first red flag here is the timing and the lack of context. A fair shop will call you to explain how this newly discovered issue relates to your original complaint. An unfair bill begins with a digital notification designed to catch you while you are busy at work, hoping you will simply click the authorize button to avoid a difficult conversation or the risk of your car being stuck on a lift overnight. Case studies from consumer protection agencies in 2026 have highlighted a tactic known as the secondary discovery. This is when a technician intentionally waits until the vehicle is already disassembled for the primary repair before looking for secondary upsells. They know that once the car is in pieces, you are far more likely to agree to additional work because you believe the labor will be cheaper since the car is already apart. However, as we discussed in the previous part regarding labor overlap, this is where the unfair billing becomes predatory. If Elena's car already has the wheels and brakes removed for the initial inspection, the labor required to replace an axle or a CV boot is significantly reduced. Yet, the estimate sent to her phone shows the full standalone labor time. This is the moment Elena needs to pause. In a deep dive into modern service psychology, we see that the fear of the loss of steering control is a powerful motivator. Elena is being sold on a worst-case scenario that may not be a reality for another 10,000 miles. Step by step, here is how you dismantle the mid-repair discovery trap. First, look at the photo quality. In 2026, every technician has access to high-definition cameras. If the photo is blurry, zoomed in too far to identify the vehicle, or looks like a stock image, you must demand a video walk-around. Second, ask the advisor for the specific measurement of the failure. If they say a part is worn, ask for the manufacturer's wear limit versus your vehicle's current measurement. Third, and most importantly, ask if the car can be safely reassembled without the additional repair. If the answer is no, and they didn't warn you about this possibility before the teardown, you are being held in a hostage negotiation. Now, let's look at the second half of this fifth sign: the final handover rush. Imagine Elena decides to decline the $900 axle repair, but authorizes the original brake service. She goes to the shop at 5:15 p.m., just as the sun is setting and the shop is preparing to close at 5:30 p.m. The service lobby is crowded, the phones are ringing, and the advisor Dave is juggling 3 different customers. He slides a multi-page invoice across the counter and says, "We got it all squared away. Just need a signature here and we can get you on your way before the traffic hits." This is a high-pressure environment designed to prevent you from reading the fine print. Historical trends in the U.S. auto industry indicate that over 60% of billing errors and unfair charges are discovered only after the customer has left the premises. When you are in the rush of the final handover, you are less likely to notice the $65 shop supply fee for a job that used 0 chemicals, or the double billing for a software reset that was supposed to be included in the diagnostic fee. To protect yourself, you must resist the urge to hurry. Take the invoice to a chair, sit down, and read every line. Look for the miscellaneous charges. In 2026, many shops have added a technology fee or a digital subscription fee to their invoices. These are often used to cover the cost of the very software they use to send you those high-pressure text messages. You should not be paying for the shop's internal business tools. If you see a charge that wasn't on your original estimate, even if it is only $20, ask for it to be explained or removed. Case studies show that a customer who spends at least 5 minutes reviewing their bill before paying is 70% less likely to be overcharged. Why? Because the service advisor knows that if they have padded the bill, this is the moment they might get caught. If you find a discrepancy, do not be intimidated by the closing time or the line of people behind you. This is your hard-earned money. But the invoice check is only the beginning of the handover. The final part of the 5th sign is the refusal of a post-repair verification. Imagine Elena pays her bill and Dave hands her the keys, pointing to her car in the parking lot. In a fair transaction, a service advisor or a lead technician should offer to walk you to the vehicle. They should show you the new parts if they are visible, such as new brake rotors or a new battery. They should also provide you with the old parts you requested earlier in the process. If a shop says they already threw the old parts in the scrap bin or the hazardous waste container, they are violating a fundamental rule of transparency. In 2026, reputable shops keep old parts in a designated area until the customer picks up the vehicle, specifically to avoid the appearance of ghost repairs. A ghost repair is when a shop bills you for a part but never actually installs it, simply cleaning the old part to make it look new. This is more common than people realize, especially with components that are hidden under plastic engine covers. Elena should do a quick visual inspection herself. She should check the fluid levels if she paid for a flush. She should look through the spokes of her wheels to see the shiny new surface of the brake rotor she just paid for. If the rotors look rusty and old, she has immediate proof of a fraudulent bill. Historical trends suggest that shops that know a customer will inspect the work are significantly more diligent in their quality control. Furthermore, you must check for the test drive verification. Every major repair in 2026 requires a road test to verify that the vehicle's sensors are calibrated and the mechanical issue is resolved. Look at your odometer. If you drop the car off at 45,210 miles and the invoice says the technician performed a 5-mile test drive, but the odometer still reads 45,210, the test drive never happened. This means you are paying for a safety verification that was skipped, which is both unfair and dangerous. The 5th sign is essentially the breakdown of the relationship between the shop and the client at the moment of truth. It is the transition from the diagnostic phase to the final transaction. If the shop has used digital tools to scare you, rushed you through the billing process, and failed to provide physical or visual proof of the work, you are almost certainly paying an unfair bill. But what if you do all of this and you still feel like something is wrong? What if the car feels different, or the bill is fair but the quality of the work is substandard? This opens up a whole new level of the masterclass. We have covered the 5 signs of an unfair bill, but now we need to talk about the recourse. What are your legal rights in 2026? How do you use the power of the credit card dispute or the Bureau of Automotive Repair to get your money back? In the next part, we are going to dive into the post-payment power plays. We will show you exactly what to do if you realize you've been overcharged after you've already driven home. We will also explore the secret world of manufacturer goodwill adjustments that can turn a $3,000 bill into a $0 bill, even if you are out of warranty. If you think the fight ends at the cash register, you are missing out on the most powerful tools in the consumer's arsenal. The moment you drive off the lot, your leverage doesn't vanish. It simply changes form. Let's look at Jackson, a high school teacher in Denver, Colorado, in June 2026. Jackson just picked up his 2021 pickup truck after a complex exhaust gas recirculation system repair. He paid $3,400, feeling pressured by the late hour and the need to get to work the next morning. However, as he sits in his driveway reviewing the digital invoice on his tablet, he notices a line item for a fuel system induction service at $299. Jackson remembers explicitly telling the service advisor, Dave, that he did not want any chemical flushes. This is the start of the post-payment power play. In 2026, historical trends show that the most effective way to handle an unfair bill after the fact is not an emotional confrontation, but a technical audit backed by a paper trail. Jackson's first step isn't to call the shop and yell, it is to document the discrepancy. He finds his original digital estimate, the one he signed on his phone before the work began, and sees that the induction service is not listed, nor is there any record of a secondary authorization via text or email. This is a clear violation of many state consumer protection laws that require written authorization for any work exceeding a certain dollar amount or a specific percentage of the original estimate. Imagine if Jackson simply ignored this. He would be out $300 for a service that involves nothing more than spraying a pressurized can of cleaner into the air intake. A high-margin, low-labor task that shops often slip into bills because they know most people won't check. Instead, Jackson uses the professional pivot. He returns to the shop the next morning, but he doesn't go to the service advisor. He asks to speak with the service manager. In 2026, service managers are increasingly focused on their online reputation scores and their internal customer satisfaction indices. Jackson presents the original estimate and the final invoice side by side. He doesn't say "you stole from me." He says, "There appears to be a clerical discrepancy where a service I declined was included in the final billing." A professional shop in 2026, when presented with this level of documentation, will almost always issue a refund to avoid the potential outcomes of a formal complaint. But what if the shop refuses? This is where you move to the second tier of the power play, the credit card dispute. Because Jackson paid with a major credit card, he is protected by the Fair Credit Billing Act. In 2026, credit card companies have become highly sophisticated in handling automotive disputes. Jackson can initiate a dispute for the specific portion of the bill that was unauthorized. To win this dispute, he needs to provide his digital evidence. Case studies of credit card disputes in the automotive sector show that when a consumer can prove they did not authorize a specific line item, the bank will often reverse the charge and place the burden of proof on the repair shop. However, the power play goes deeper than just disputing an unauthorized charge. What if the work was authorized but performed poorly, or the shop charged for parts they never actually installed? Imagine a driver named Maria in San Jose, California. She paid for a full brake job, including new rotors, on her 2023 electric vehicle. A week later, she hears a grinding noise. She takes the car to a different shop for a second opinion, and the technician there shows her that the rotors on her car are the original factory units, likely just resurfaced or cleaned, despite her being billed $800 for new high-performance ceramic rotors. In this scenario, Maria has physical evidence of fraud. In 2026, California's Bureau of Automotive Repair, or BAR, remains one of the most powerful regulatory bodies in the United States. Maria doesn't just ask for a refund. She informs the original shop that she is filing a formal complaint with the BAR and providing the second shop's diagnostic report as evidence. Historical trends indicate that the mere mention of a state regulatory investigation can cause a shop to immediately offer a full refund of both parts and labor. These agencies have the power to pull a shop's license to operate, and most owners will not risk their entire business over a few $100s in illicit parts profit. Now let's explore one of the most underutilized tools in the 2026 consumer arsenal: the manufacturer goodwill adjustment. This is specifically for vehicles that are recently out of warranty. Imagine a driver named Kevin who owns a 2022 SUV. His transmission fails at 65,000 miles, just 5,000 miles past his powertrain warranty. The dealership gives him an estimate for $7,000. Kevin feels he is being treated unfairly, because a major component shouldn't fail so soon after the warranty expires. Instead of just accepting the bill, Kevin initiates a goodwill request. He calls the manufacturer's corporate customer relations line, not the dealership. In 2026, manufacturers use data-driven loyalty scores to decide who gets help. Kevin points out that he has had every single oil change and tire rotation done at an authorized dealer. He provides his service history. He explains that while he understands he is technically out of warranty, The failure of such a major component is inconsistent with the brand's reputation for quality. Case studies have shown that manufacturers will often offer a split pay arrangement, where they cover 50 to 75% of the repair cost, or in some cases, the entire bill as a gesture of goodwill to keep a customer for their next vehicle purchase. To navigate this, you must understand the difference between a recall, a technical service bulletin or TSB, and a goodwill adjustment. A recall is a safety-related issue that the manufacturer is legally required to fix for free. A TSB is a set of instructions provided to technicians on how to fix common, non-safety issues. An unfair shop might see a TSB for a known problem and charge you the full labor rate to fix it, without telling you that there might be a hidden warranty extension for that specific issue. In 2026, you should always search the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration database or specialized automotive apps using your vehicle identification number before agreeing to a major repair. If you find a TSB that matches your symptoms, you can use that as leverage to ask for a repair discount or a goodwill adjustment. The step-by-step process for a post-payment power play is as follows. First, perform a digital audit of your final invoice against your estimate. Second, if there is a discrepancy, attempt a professional resolution with the service manager. Third, if the shop is uncooperative, gather third-party evidence from another certified technician. Fourth, leverage state regulatory bodies and the threat of a credit card dispute. Fifth, for major component failures just out of warranty, skip the dealership and go directly to the manufacturer's corporate office. By the time you reach this stage, you are no longer just a customer. You are a risk management problem for the shop. They want you to go away, and in 2026, the easiest way for them to make you go away is to satisfy your demand for a fair transaction. This deep dive into the post-payment landscape proves that the invoice is not a final verdict. It is the beginning of a second negotiation where you hold the power of the law, the bank, and the manufacturer behind you. But what if the issue isn't a single line item or a failed part? What if the entire repair strategy was flawed from the beginning, because the shop used outdated diagnostic methods on your high-tech 2026 vehicle? As we move into the next part of this masterclass, we are going to look at the specialized world of advanced driver assistance systems and electric vehicle battery health. These are the new frontiers of overcharging. We will reveal how shops are charging for calibrations that never happened, and how you can use your car's own internal data logs to catch them in the act. If you own a car made in the last 5 years, the next section on digital deception is the most relevant technical information you will ever hear. We are going to show you how to read the hidden logs that your car keeps on every technician who plugs into its computer. Every modern vehicle on the road in 2026 has a digital memory that is far more reliable than any service advisor's verbal explanation. We are living in the era of the software-defined vehicle, where your car is essentially a rolling server with millions of lines of code. This transition has created a new, sophisticated frontier for unfair billing, known as digital deception. In the past, a mechanic might lie about a physical part like a spark plug or a belt. Today, they can lie about a software calibration, a diagnostic handshake, or the health of an electric vehicle battery pack. To understand how this manifests, we have to look at the case of Logan, a software engineer in Seattle, who recently took his 2024 electric crossover in for a minor bumper repair after a low-speed parking lot incident. The shop informed Logan that because his car is equipped with advanced driver assistance systems, or ADAS, any impact to the bumper requires a full recalibration of the radar sensors and the surround view cameras. The estimate included a line item for $450 labeled ADAS static and dynamic calibration. This is a common and often necessary service in 2026, as even a 1-degree misalignment in a sensor can cause an automated braking system to fail or a lane keep assist system to veer into traffic. However, historical trends show that as these systems become more common, some shops have begun charging for these digital services without actually performing them. They rely on the fact that if the car isn't throwing an immediate error code, the customer will never know the difference. Logan, however, knew where to look. In 2026, almost every vehicle utilizes a secure gateway module. This is a digital firewall that prevents unauthorized hacking of the car's computer systems. For a technician to perform a calibration or even clear a deep-level fault code, they must use a diagnostic tool that authenticates with the manufacturer's servers. This creates a permanent, time-stamped digital footprint. After picking up his car and paying the bill, Logan accessed his vehicle's internal service log through the settings menu on his dashboard. He discovered that while his car was at the shop for 6 hours, The security gateway was only accessed once for 3 minutes at the very beginning of the day. A proper ADAS calibration takes between 45 minutes and 2 hours of active communication between the tool and the car. Logan had been built for a digital ghost. This is the hidden reality of the 2026 service bay. If you are driving a vehicle manufactured after 2020, you must demand a pre-scan and post-scan report. This is a standardized document generated by diagnostic software that shows every computer module in your car, its status before the repair, and its status after. A fair shop will provide this as a matter of course to prove the work was completed. An unfair bill will include the charge for the scan, but provide no physical or digital evidence that it occurred. Imagine if you paid for a home inspection, and the inspector just gave you a sticky note saying everything is fine instead of a 20-page report with photos. You would reject it. You must apply that same standard to your car's digital health. Another significant area of digital deception involves the health of electric vehicle or EV batteries. Imagine a driver in Miami named Isabella who owns a 5-year-old EV. She notices her range has dropped by about 20%. She takes it to a specialized EV repair center, and they tell her that the battery state of health, or SOH, has fallen below the critical threshold. They recommend a full battery pack replacement for $14,000. They show her a generic bar graph on a tablet that is colored red. In 2026, the potential outcomes of battery degradation are often exaggerated to push for total replacements rather than module-level repairs. Historical trends in the EV sector indicate that a 20% drop in range is rarely a sign of a completely dead battery. It is often caused by a single failing cell or a module that has drifted out of balance with the others. A sophisticated shop with the right equipment can perform a cell balancing service or replace a single module for a fraction of the cost of a full pack. However, many shops prefer the high-ticket sale of a full battery. To protect yourself, you must ask for the individual cell voltage map. Every EV battery management system tracks the voltage of every individual cell group. If the shop cannot show you this map, they are guessing with your money. If they show you the map and only 1 or 2 cells are significantly lower than the rest, you are a candidate for a targeted repair, not a total replacement. Step by step, here is how you verify a digital repair in 2026. First, before authorizing any ADAS or computer work, ask the shop which diagnostic platform they use, and if they provide a certified completion report. Second, check your vehicle's own internal logs. Most modern infotainment systems have a service or system history tab that shows when an external device was connected. Third, if you are being told a major electronic component failed, ask for the specific freeze frame data. This is a snapshot of exactly what the car was doing, speed, temperature, voltage, at the exact millisecond the error occurred. If a shop can't produce the freeze frame data, the error code might have been a transient glitch that just needed a software reset, not a $3,000 hardware replacement. We are also seeing an increase in the software update upsell. In 2026, many vehicles receive over-the-air, or OTA, updates for free while parked in your driveway. Yet, some unscrupulous shops will tell a customer that their car requires a proprietary firmware flash that can only be done in the shop for a $200 labor fee. Always check your car's update menu before agreeing to this. If the version number the shop is offering is the same one your car already has, you are looking at a blatant attempt at overcharging. Case studies have shown that as technicians become more reliant on tablets and less on wrenches, the gap between what is happening on the screen and what is happening under the hood is where the profit is hidden. The digital deception sign is particularly dangerous because it feels authoritative. When a computer says a part is bad, most people don't argue with the computer. But the computer is only as honest as the person operating the software. In 2026, you must treat the diagnostic report with the same skepticism you treat a handwritten estimate. This leads us to a critical realization. The most expensive repairs are often the ones where the shop claims the most certainty. But what if the shop is certain about the wrong thing? What if they are replacing parts based on a computer code without ever verifying the mechanical failure? This brings us to the next phase of our masterclass: the diagnostic dead end and the art of the second opinion. In the next part, we will explore why a second opinion in 2026 is not just a suggestion but a financial necessity. We will show you how to get a second opinion without paying a second diagnostic fee, and how to use remote diagnostic services that can audit your car's health from your own driveway. If you think you are at the mercy of the first shop you visit, you are about to discover the decentralized future of auto repair that puts the power back in your hands. We are going to break down the specific scripts you can use to tell a shop you are taking your data elsewhere. The conversation changes the moment you realize that your car's diagnostic data is your property, not the shop's trade secret. Imagine Anthony, a freelance photographer in Dallas, Texas, in the blistering summer of 2026. He drives a 2023 electric sedan that suddenly displays a high-voltage system error and enters a limp mode, limiting his speed to 20 miles per hour. Anthony limps the car into the nearest dealership. After 2 hours, the service advisor tells him that the onboard inverter has suffered an internal short and requires a full replacement at a cost of $4,800. Anthony is already out $250 for the diagnostic fee, and he feels the heavy weight of the sunken cost fallacy. He thinks that because he has already spent the money and the car is already there, he might as well just let them fix it. This is the diagnostic dead end, and it is the precursor to the most common type of unfair bill in 2026. Historical trends in the automotive industry show that consumers are statistically most vulnerable immediately after a diagnostic is performed. The shop has your car, they have your initial fee, and they have the perceived authority of the computer readout. However, in 2026, the decentralized future of auto repair means you are never actually trapped. You must understand that a fault code is not a diagnosis. It is merely a symptom. If a code says P0300 for a random misfire, an unfair shop might tell you that you need a whole new set of ignition coils and an engine control module. A second opinion might reveal that you simply had a loose vacuum hose or a bad batch of winterblend fuel. The art of the second opinion in 2026 has been revolutionized by remote diagnostics and the rise of the independent diagnostic specialist. These are technicians who do not own repair shops and do not sell parts. They only sell their brain power. Imagine if Anthony, instead of saying yes to the $4,800 inverter, used the professional pivot script. He looks the advisor in the eye and says, "I would like to pay the diagnostic fee as agreed, but I require the full digital output of the scan, including the freeze frame data and the specific pinout test results that led you to the inverter failure conclusion. I will be seeking a remote technical audit before I authorize a repair of this magnitude." By asking for the freeze frame data, Anthony is asking for a snapshot of the vehicle's entire nervous system at the exact millisecond the error occurred. In 2026, this data includes battery temperature, coolant flow rate, throttle position, and voltage ripples. If the shop is being honest, they will provide this PDF report instantly. If they are padding the bill, they will suddenly become vague, claiming the data is proprietary or that the technician didn't save it. This is your smoking gun. A shop that refuses to provide the raw data is a shop that is likely guessing with your money. Case studies from 2026 indicate that over 30% of major component replacements, like transmissions and EV inverters, are unnecessary. They are often the result of what technicians call a parts cannon approach, where the shop replaces the most expensive component first because it is the most profitable, rather than the most likely culprit. Anthony takes his digital report and uploads it to a 2026 remote diagnostic platform. For a $50 flat fee, a master technician in a different state reviews the data. Within 20 minutes, the remote expert notices that the voltage drop occurred only when the auxiliary cooling fan kicked on. The diagnosis? A 50-cent wiring harness rub through near the fan, not a $4,000 inverter failure. This leads to the step-by-step process of the second opinion power play. First, you must decouple the diagnosis from the repair. Never feel obligated to fix the car where you diagnosed it. Second, utilize a mobile diagnostic tool. In 2026, many drivers carry an OBD2 dongle that connects to their smartphone via 5G. These tools can now perform deep-level scans that were once reserved for dealerships. Third, if the repair estimate exceeds $1,000, you should seek a second opinion from a shop that specializes in your specific powertrain. An independent EV specialist will almost always be more nuanced and fair than a general dealership that is incentivized to move high-ticket hardware. Potential outcomes of this strategy are massive. In Anthony's case, he pays the dealership their $250 diagnostic fee, pays a flatbed tow truck $100 to move his car to an independent specialist, and pays that specialist $400 for the wiring repair. He saves over $4,000 by spending an extra $350. This is the math of the informed consumer. The unfair bill relies on your desire to take the path of least resistance. The moment you introduce a second expert into the equation, the original shop knows they cannot get away with a parts cannon strategy. Furthermore, we must address the conflict of interest inherent in the traditional shop model. Historical trends show that as labor rates have climbed to $200 or more in cities like New York and San Francisco, shops are under immense pressure to maintain high bay productivity. If a technician can swap a whole inverter in 2 hours and bill 8, the shop wins. If a technician spends 4 hours hunting down a tiny wiring short and only bills 2 hours of labor, the shop loses money. This systemic incentive structure is why you must be the one to advocate for a deeper look. Imagine a driver named Maya in Chicago. Her car's check engine light is on for a catalytic converter efficiency code. The shop quotes her $2,500 for a new converter. Maya uses a 2026 mobile app to hire a mobile diagnostic tech who comes to her office parking lot. The mobile tech performs a live data graph of her oxygen sensors and finds that the rear sensor is simply lazy, responding too slowly to changes in exhaust composition. The converter is fine. The fix is a $150 sensor. Maya's second opinion didn't just save her money, it prevented a perfectly good, high-value part from being sent to a scrap heap. In the 2026 automotive market, data is the currency of truth. If you allow a shop to gatekeep your car's data, you are handing them your wallet. You should always ask, if I take this report to another master technician, will they see the same conclusive evidence you are seeing? This single question often causes a service advisor to walk back a high-stakes recommendation and suggest a more conservative, multi-stage repair approach. But what if the shop tries to block you from leaving? What if they tell you that your car is too dangerous to be towed? Or they threaten you with massive storage fees for every hour the car sits on their lot while you seek that second opinion? This brings us to the most legally complex and aggressive tactic in the repair industry: the storage fee trap and the mechanic's lien. In the next part, we are going to dive into the fine print of the work order you sign when you dropped off your keys. We will show you the specific phrases that shops use to legally seize your vehicle, and how to use the 2026 right to repair laws to break their grip. If you have ever felt like your car was in a high-security prison, the next section on contractual traps is your escape plan. We will reveal the one sentence you must cross out on every work order before you sign it to ensure you retain your right to leave without penalty. Imagine Taylor, a middle school teacher in Charlotte, North Carolina, in the fall of 2026. Taylor's 2022 heavy-duty truck has developed a strange grinding noise in the transmission. He drops it off at a local transmission specialty shop, signs a digital screen on a tablet without reading the 3 pages of fine print, and heads to work. For hours later, he receives a call. The shop has pulled the transmission pan and found metal shavings. They tell him a full rebuild is necessary, quoting $6,400. When Taylor, reeling from the price, says he wants to get a second opinion and will have a tow truck pick up the vehicle, the tone of the conversation shifts instantly. The service advisor informs Taylor that because the transmission pan is off and the fluid is drained, the vehicle is currently non-drivable. Furthermore, per the contract Taylor signed, there is a $400 teardown and inspection fee, plus a $150 per day storage fee that begins the moment he declines the repair. This is the contractual trap, and it is the most legally binding way an auto repair shop can inflate an unfair bill in 2026. Historical trends in the automotive service industry show that as labor rates and overhead have increased, shops have turned to aggressive legal clauses in their standard work orders to ensure they get paid regardless of whether they perform a repair. When you sign a work order in 2026, you are not just authorizing a diagnostic. In many cases, you are signing a high-interest short-term contract that grants the shop a possessory lien on your second most valuable asset. The first sign of this trap is the storage fee clause. Look at the fine print on the digital or paper work order before you ever hand over your keys. There is a specific sentence that almost every predatory shop includes. I authorize the repair shop to charge a storage fee of X dollars per day for vehicles left over 24 hours after an estimate is provided or work is completed. In 2026, with real estate and insurance costs at all-time highs, these fees have ballooned from $20 a day to upwards of $150 in major U.S. metropolitan areas. This is a pressure tactic designed to make the cost of seeking a second opinion higher than the cost of just agreeing to the original inflated repair. To retain your right to leave without penalty, you must find this sentence and modify it. Take a pen, or if it is a digital screen, ask the advisor to add a note to the comments section. The sentence you must cross out or modify is, I agree to pay daily storage fees. Instead, you should write or insist on the following language. Storage fees are waived if the vehicle is removed within 72 hours of a declined estimate. By striking through the original clause and adding this modification, you are creating a counteroffer. If the shop accepts your keys after you have modified the document, they have technically accepted your terms. Historical trends in consumer litigation suggest that a modified contract is significantly harder for a shop to enforce in a small claims court or a lien dispute. Imagine if Taylor had done this. When the shop tried to threaten him with a $150 per day fee, he could have pointed to his modified agreement. This simple act of striking a line changes the power dynamic from the shop holding your car hostage to you exercising your right as a consumer to shop for the best value. The second layer of the contractual trap is the mechanic's lien. In 2026, most U.S. states have streamlined the process for shops to file a lien against a vehicle's title. If you refuse to pay a disputed bill, the shop can legally keep your car. In some jurisdictions, after 30 to 60 days of non-payment, they can even sell the vehicle at auction to recover their costs. Potential outcomes of a lien dispute are almost always in favor of the shop if the work order was signed without modifications. This is why you must also look for the clause that says, "I grant the shop a security interest in the vehicle." This phrase is essentially giving the shop the right to act as a bank. If you see this, you should ask why it is necessary for a simple diagnostic. A fair shop relies on their reputation and the quality of their work to get paid. They do not need to threaten the ownership of your vehicle from the first minute you walk in. Case studies in 2026 have highlighted the rise of the teardown fee as a profit center. This occurs when a shop claims they must disassemble a major component to give you an accurate estimate. They might charge $500 to take an engine apart but then quote an additional $800 just to put it back together without fixing anything. This is the reassembly trap. To avoid this, before any major component is opened, you must demand a reassembly estimate in writing. Ask the advisor, "If I decide not to proceed with the repair after you take it apart, what is the exact total cost to put the vehicle back in the exact condition I dropped it off in?" If they cannot or will not give you a hard number for reassembly, do not authorize the teardown. An unfair bill thrives on the ambiguity of what it costs to say no. Furthermore, in 2026, we are seeing the emergence of the authorized to operate clause. This is a sentence where you grant any employee of the shop permission to operate your vehicle on public streets for testing or even personal use at their discretion. This is a massive liability risk. You should modify this to authorization to operate is granted only for the purposes of a necessary diagnostic road test, not to exceed 5 miles. This prevents the shop from using your vehicle for parts runs or allowing technicians to take it home overnight, which historical trends show happens more often than consumers realize. Step by step, your defense against contractual traps in 2026 looks like this. First, read every line of the work order, focusing on the bottom third of the page where the legalities are hidden. Second, identify and strike through any mention of immediate storage fees or excessive reassembly costs. Third, specify that all old parts must be returned to you, as this prevents the shop from claiming they have already disposed of the evidence of a fraudulent repair. Fourth, take a photo of your modified contract and the vehicle's odometer and fuel gauge before you leave the premises. In 2026, a timestamped photo is your best defense against a shop that claims they performed a 10-mile test drive, or that your car arrived with a dent that they actually caused in their own bay. The legal landscape of 2026 also includes expanded right to repair laws in several U.S. states. These laws often mandate that shops must provide you with a printed or digital copy of any diagnostic data they use to generate an estimate. If a shop refuses to give you the scan data, they are likely violating state law. You can use this as a powerful lever. By saying, "I am aware of my rights under the 2026 Data Access Act and I require my car's diagnostic logs before I sign this authorization," you signal that you are not a target for a ticket patter. Taylor eventually got his truck back, but only after paying a $700 assembly fee for a transmission that was still broken. He could have saved that money by following these steps. The reality of 2026 is that the repair shop is a high-stakes environment where the contract you sign is just as important as the wrench the mechanic turns. But even if you manage to avoid the contractual traps and negotiate a fair labor rate, there is one final master-level move that the most informed drivers use to ensure they never pay a cent more than necessary. It is the ultimate closing move. In the final part of this masterclass, we are going to reveal the specific phrase that makes service advisors instantly drop their markups, and we will provide you with the master checklist that you should keep in your glove box for every service visit. This final piece of the puzzle is the difference between being a victim of the system and being a master of it. We are going to summarize everything we have learned into a 5-minute execution plan that will save you thousands over the life of your vehicle. Jordan is standing in the service lobby of a high-volume dealership in Columbus, Ohio, in the summer of 2026. The air conditioning is humming, and the smell of expensive coffee fills the room. A deliberate atmospheric choice designed to make customers feel they are in a premium, trustworthy environment. Jordan's 2021 hybrid crossover has a warning light indicating a battery cooling system failure. The service advisor, a seasoned professional named Mike, presents an estimate of $3,900 for a complete cooling fan assembly and a high-voltage battery controller. Mike uses the phrase industry standard and mentions that these components often fail simultaneously. Jordan, however, has been through this masterclass. Instead of signing the screen, Jordan leans in and uses the master-level closing move. Jordan says, "I appreciate the estimate, but before I authorize this, I would like to see the manufacturer diagnostic tree and the live data stream that supports the failure of both the fan and the controller." This specific phrase is the ultimate disruptor in the 2026 automotive service industry. To understand why, you must understand the diagnostic tree. Every vehicle manufacturer, from Ford to Tesla, provides their technicians with a highly specific, logical flowchart for every error code. It is a step-by-step process. If Step A shows 5 volts, proceed to Step B. If Step B shows resistance, replace the wire, not the module. Historical trends indicate that in high-pressure service environments, technicians often skip the tree and jump straight to the most expensive part, a practice known as parts hanging. By asking for the diagnostic tree, Jordan is signaling that he understands the technician's homework. If the shop is being honest, Mike will be able to print out the flowchart with the technician's handwritten notes or digital timestamps showing exactly where the test failed. If the bill is unfair, Mike will likely suddenly remember a specific technical service bulletin that might allow for a much cheaper repair. Case studies in 2026 have shown that when a consumer asks for the live data stream, the dynamics of the transaction shift from emotional to technical. For Jordan, the live data would show the actual temperature sensors in the battery. If the sensors show a normal temperature but the fan is being replaced anyway, the bill is clearly unfair. In several historical trends documented by consumer advocacy groups, shops that were challenged with this request reduced their estimates by an average of 45%. They realized that the customer was not a passive participant but an auditor. Now let's look at the secret weapon for dealership repairs: the zone manager. Imagine if Mike tells Jordan that there is no way to lower the price because the parts are fixed cost. In 2026, every major automotive brand in the United States has a regional representative known as a zone manager or a district manager of after-sales. This person has the authority to grant goodwill adjustments that the dealership service manager might be hiding. Jordan asks, "Can you provide me with the contact information for the manufacturer's regional zone manager so I can discuss a goodwill adjustment for this component failure?" Dealerships loathe involving the zone manager in a dispute because it reflects poorly on their internal customer satisfaction scores. Potential outcomes of this request often include the dealership suddenly finding a way to cover the labor or providing a significant discount on the parts just to keep the issue internal. This brings us to the master checklist for 2026, the document you must keep in your glove box for every single service visit. This is your 5-minute execution plan for total financial protection. Step 1 occurs the moment you arrive. You must modify the work order as we discussed in Part 9. Strike through the storage fee clause and the open-ended diagnostic authorization. Write in, "No work to exceed the initial diagnostic fee" without written electronic authorization. This prevents the 3 o'clock phone call where the shop says we already did the work, and you owe us $2,000. Step 2 is the pre-scan verification. In the year 2026, a car's digital health is everything. You must demand the pre-repair diagnostic report. This report should list every fault code in the car's system before the technician ever touches a wrench. This prevents the shop from claiming that a new, unrelated problem was found during the repair. If the code wasn't there when you dropped it off, but it is there when you pick it up, the shop is responsible for the secondary issue. Step 3 is the parts transparency audit. When the estimate is presented, you must ask for the specific part numbers and the manufacturer's suggested retail price. If the shop is charging more than 10% over MSRP, you have a signal of an unfair bill. Additionally, reiterate your requirement for the old parts to be placed in the boxes of the new parts and left in your trunk. Historical trends show that shops are much less likely to use substandard aftermarket parts if they know you will be inspecting the packaging and the old components. Step 4 is the labor overlap check. Look at the labor hours for every line item. If you are being charged for 4 hours of labor to replace a water pump and 3 hours to replace a timing belt, ask for the bundled labor rate. In 2026, software like AllData and Mitchell 1 specifically provides a bundled time for overlapping jobs. If the shop is not using the bundled time, they are charging you for ghost labor. Step 5 is the post-repair verification. Before you pay, check the odometer. If you paid for a diagnostic road test but the odometer hasn't moved, you are being billed for a safety check that never happened. Open the hood and look for signs of work. If you paid for a new battery, the battery should look new, and the terminals should be clean. If you paid for a fluid flush, the fluid in the reservoir should be clear and at the correct level. Imagine Jordan following this plan. He discovers that the diagnostic tree actually leads to a simple blown fuse in the cooling circuit, a $20 fix, rather than a $4,000 controller replacement. By spending 5 minutes on the checklist, Jordan saves thousands of dollars and ensures his vehicle is actually repaired correctly. The historical trends of 2026 suggest that as vehicles become more complex, the only way to ensure a fair bill is to become a student of the process. The era of just handing over the keys is over. You are now equipped with the technical knowledge, the legal strategies, and the psychological tools to navigate any service department in the United States. You know how to spot the diagnostic dead end, how to break the contractual trap, and how to use the digital logs of your own car as a shield against deception. This masterclass has pulled back the curtain on an industry that thrives on the information gap between the technician and the driver. By closing that gap, you change the potential outcomes of every future repair. You are no longer a target, you are an advocate. You are not just paying for a repair. You are investing in the longevity of your vehicle and the security of your finances. As we wrap up this deep dive, remember that the most powerful tool you have is your willingness to walk away. In 2026, there are more choices than ever, from mobile independent specialists to remote diagnostic consultants. If a shop feels wrong, if the bill feels unfair, or if the advisor refuses to show you the data, leave. Your car is a mobile data center, and you are the administrator. The next time you hear a strange noise from your engine or a warning light illuminates your dashboard, you won't feel that sinking feeling in your stomach. Instead, you will reach for your glove box, pull out your checklist, and prepare for a fair, transparent transaction. This is the end of the age of the unfair auto repair bill. You have the data, you have the scripts, and you have the power. Drive with confidence, knowing that you are the most informed person in the service bay.